is as a reentry coordinator for Valley Charities in the Mat-Su. However, my role today is as the chair of the Professional Development Committee for Alaska Can. And we want to welcome you to our fall convening about equity and access, removing barriers to post-secondary education. And the three areas that we're hoping to, our objectives today are exploring the barriers specific to our Alaska students, highlighting success stories of barrier-breaking initiatives in our state, and expanding advocacy networks. And we're going to have different panelists from different areas across Alaska talking to us about these things. And then we're also going to break off into group sessions. And so I'd like to hand it over to Julia if she thinks she's ready, and let her take it from here.
Oops. I do have a camera. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks, Barbara. So when the Alaska Can Conference met back in February, we discussed barriers to post-secondary education. And so we used a Jamboard, and the Jamboard's link is going to be coming out to you here in just a second in the chat box so that you'll be able to join in. But we took all the sticky notes that we had all put together, and some members of the Professional Development Committee grouped them. And so they came out in these 5 areas, these 5 kind of themes that we saw that present barriers to post-secondary education. So one of those barriers would be cost. And it costs money, and where are you going to find the money, and how do you get the financing, and could it be a type of post-secondary education that maybe doesn't have a cost, or the cost is picked up somewhere else, or how long are we going to go to school? Those kinds of things fit into those costs. Navigation and representation. We even, as we were prepping for this, we're going through acronyms. What does this acronym mean? What does this one mean? We live in a land of alphabet soup. That's how we work. We shorten everything down, but not everyone understands what all of those pieces mean. And so we got to get rid of some of that jargon, the confusing verbiage. Talk about credits. So the last convening that we had earlier in the year was about dual credit. So would that be something that would help out a student to get into post-secondary education, start ripping out some of those barriers? Cultural awareness, keeping up with ever-changing industries. Right now, we have got so many changes happening so quickly. It's even faster than it was, 2 years ago. And so keeping up with that kind of piece. Access, do they have internet? Is it close to their home? Is it around where they are? Do they have good connections? Do they understand the technology that goes along with that? Even one of my own daughters, when everything went into virtual education, she had literally 10 different platforms for her 6 classes to keep track of. And just think about if somebody was then also an adult learner who had children in the K-12 system, who their classes also went into virtual learning, and they went into multiple platforms. Just the navigation of all of that, having that technical awareness to keep track, and being able to stay at home. Exposure and preparation. So how much time does it take? What is our prep going to look like for that? What are our options? Getting in there and have some career awareness and some career development training to make some solid choices as middle and high school students, so they've tried things out, so that even goes along with that cost barrier we just talked about, that they already have tried things out and they're not necessarily paying for something that's not going to work out for them. Are there travel regulations? We've definitely seen that over the last 2 years. And so, where are they going to find these plans, those kinds of things? And then the support. What's happening at home? Do they have support of their family? Do they have a structure around them that helps them out with their friends and their family? Is it a case of ACEs, right? Traumatic events that have happened to someone that makes them an injured student, trying to go out and find where options might be to leave home, to leave their situation. Is the community supportive of that student leaving the area to go out and find educational opportunities and then be able to come back and support elders or support their community, or maybe even start up a new business? Are there support not only from when the back at home, but when they get to, if they leave the village and they get to a location, maybe it's UAF, we're going to hear from them today. Maybe it's somewhere here in Anchorage, we're going to hear from some different organizations. Do they feel supported? Do they feel like they belong and they're supported in those areas as well? So those are some of the things that we're going to kind of focus on. We did choose 4 panelists for you today that are going to speak to us. And we're hoping that you can kind of see them speaking to these areas. After each panelist is going to give a brief presentation. Some will have a visual presentation for you. Some will just be an auditory presentation. But after each one, we're going to have an opportunity to break out into breakout groups and be able to discuss what did we just hear and what does that kind of mean to us. And you'll have an opportunity. You will want to be able to get into the Jamboard. I will give you a hint right now that the Jamboard works better for inputting if you're able to get into the Chrome browser with the link for the Jamboard that was in the chat box. So we'll have those opportunities every time we have a speaker. What did we hear? What do we see coming? And then when we finish with our last speaker, we'll have one more chance to kind of come together and have some final thoughts. Where do we see ourselves going? What are some action steps for the Alaska Post-Secondary Access and Completion Network? So Barbara?
Awesome. Well, I'd like to, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. And our first speaker is Tim Murphy, who is an educator in Fairbanks, Alaska, and has taught in the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District, as well as serving as an adjunct writer instructor with the Rural Alaska Honors Institute for 15 years. He is currently an academic advisor with the Rural Student Services at UAF, and is also the program manager for the Aline Pengio McLean House and a small living learning community on campus serving rural Alaska students, Native students, through transitional housing and cultural programming. So Timothy, if you'd like to go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I think that made me work. Does that look correct? Okay. Hi, everybody. It's really good to be here. I do appreciate being invited to come and represent 3 really closely knit sister programs at UAF. And at first, when I was asked, tapped to do this, and the idea was, hey, what are student barriers? It was like, oh, well, I obviously know what that is. And then the more I really sat and thought about it, I was like, I really have a lot of information to give you guys, because that is at the heart of what we do here at within our program at UAF. So I won't just be representing Rural Student Services, who, as you heard, I am an academic advisor for. I'm also the program manager for the Eileen Pennegue McLean House. It's a very small transitional dorm on UAF campus. Used to be run by Residence Life. It was in 2011. It was transitioned over to be under the management of the College of Rural and Community Development. So actually, it was kind of dropped on RSS, on Rural Student Services, and that's when they asked me, "Hey, would you be a dorm manager, a program manager for this?" And I was like, "I'm an English teacher. I don't know anything about running a dorm, but I'll figure it out." And I've also taught for Rural Student Service, or for the Rural Alaska Honors Institute. And I see Brianna Pauling, a very good friend of mine. She is the director of that program, and she's in our audience today here as well. And I kind of wish I could just drag her into the camera with me, because she's got a lot of information there as well. But I'm hoping to show you folks how all 3 of our programs are very, very closely tied together, and at which level of student involvement we each play a part in. So that being said, that is who I am. And I'll go ahead and share my screen, and somebody just shout at me. I did a really silly thing. I got a new computer just prior to this happening here. So I'm going to see if I can make this do what I'd like it to do. Let's see if I can get to where I can get at it. Oh, this is it right in here. Okay, let's go to view and present. How about I do that? Okay, and I'm going to minimize this thing on my side over here, so I'm slightly functional. Okay, so this, I actually worked with Gabrielle Russell, who is the director of Rural Student Services. We have a presentation that we've used in the past, and there was a lot of information here, so I pared some of this down. So I'm going to jump around a little bit, but this is our mission statement. Is Rural Student Services committed to responding to student needs by providing quality services to Native and rural students who expend positive efforts in the pursuit of higher education and its opportunities. Our comprehensive approach is unique in recognizing students' efforts to develop and maintain academic and personal balance as they contribute to the cultural richness of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. That's a lot of pretty words to say we help students get here and stay here and be part of the university community and be successful in post-secondary education. I really tried to get this figure, this image to get into my Google slides. So Brianna, I'm really sorry. Brianna put this information together. This came up in we have a weekly staff meeting at Rural Student Services on campus. And last week, knowing that this was coming up, this was on my mind, and I really hadn't paid attention to the agenda, and they sprung this on me during the meeting. And I said, well, this is exactly some of the information that we wanted to hear and know about in this presentation. So I'm going to hit this link here. I'm going to go to the image that I have and pull this up. So this is a graph that shows this is looking at non-returning students. So we work on average at Rural Student Services. There are, and I'll show us more of that later, there are 5 of us, I think, advising. And because I also do this position at the dorm, I take on fewer advisees. But we have academic advisors who are doing comprehensive advising, and that's cradle to graduation. We're talking recruiting students in high school and following them all the way through graduating with their degree. Some of these advisors are advising 150 students each. We, on average, service about 500 students a year in our program. These are some non-returning students, and we actually have some information on why they are non-returning. And if we look at what the barriers are, let's see if I can make this behave. There's some had academic changes due to grades, or they became academically disqualified, didn't make the mark. But when we have these really specific barriers here, admissions are on hold for some reason, or a student couldn't do an online class. And these are student numbers out of a total of 226 students. The largest one there you'll see is financial aid. And I saw that on the Jamboard. Is obviously for most students anywhere is a big problem, but very particularly for our student set. I mean, that's a large number out of these number of non-returners. Some medical reasons, COVID being a new one here for in the last couple of years or last year. But then if we go down to this personal, there were 69 students there. And if we go down to the largest number in that subset is just not prepared for college. And that can mean a lot of things. Working very personally with these students, we kind of know what those not prepared reasons are. A lot of it is the navigation part that you folks had previously put in on that Jamboard. I saw the jargon, knowing who to talk to, knowing the right people to speak with. And sometimes these students aren't getting enough of that information or enough of that help. And then there was some transfer numbers there. But so financial aid and just not feeling really prepared has been some big issues for our students. So let's go here. Let's see if I can navigate my way back to that slideshow that I was working in, which was in here. Hey, great. Okay. So our rural student services has been, we just had, ooh, this is really jumping around on me. Let's go back here. We just turned 50 years in 2019 and had a really big 50-year celebration. That's how long we've been functioning at UAF. And we had this resolution number 56, and the legislative bill it put us on the map for the university. RSS was started all those years ago by rural Native students at the university who felt like they needed a little bit of extra help transitioning to college because there just were fewer resources on their home grounds, in their home villages where they were at. We have our Troth Yetta legacy, where we cite Chief Peter John, who said that years ago, this hill that our university is housed on, Troth Yetta, was always going to be a place of learning. And we kind of stand on that foundation and feel like we have a cultural connection to our students. These are, of course, our target population is Alaska Native and rural students. And we've got students from every region of the state. Our largest regions are in the interior area, out on the West Coast area in the Chilista region. We have quite a few students there. And this data is from, I believe, last year's student population. So we're reaching across the state. And what we're doing in linking these students to UAF is what we call comprehensive advising. And we start with these students in high school. So each advisor generally picks a region or is assigned to a region. My grift has been the North Slope for the last 11 years because Arctic Slope Regional Corporation has a vested interest in this dorm on campus. So I'm kind of their point man, and I go up to Barrow High School and then stay in touch with the other 7 villages and their high schools and counselors, and just start tapping these students their junior year. I talk to 9th and 10th graders. I promote the Rural Alaska Honors Institute, which is kind of our young recruiting tool. It's a summer bridging program, an academic boot camp, and a student can come for 6 weeks in the summer of their junior or senior year and earn up to 11 college credits. So that gets them really acclimated to the university, and they get to meet a rural student services advisor at that time. So we're already working with them at a very young age and staying in touch with these students and kind of helping them navigate some of the lingo on campus, kind of demystifying the academy for these students and making them feel a little bit more comfortable. And they're with like-minded students, and students have a similar cultural experience to them. Also, the dorm we have here, the Eileen Carnegie McLean House, is a living learning community of students who we're a living learning community based on cultural similarity. So we're all Alaska Native, Alaska rural students here at the dorm, and we do cultural programming. We eat together, study together, play together. So we're able to do that. So these are ways we're addressing some of the obvious things. Also, as academic advisors, here's kind of our flow chart of how we're functioning with our students. But we do know on the academic part or on the financial aid part, we're very familiar with the regional scholarships and then the village scholarships, right down to knowing, we make it our business to know the village of Atkasuk, 60 miles south of Barrow, Utqiagvik. I happen to know that there's a small private funded scholarship, the Jerry Hollingsworth Scholarship, for any student wanting to, from that village, wanting to come to the university. And they'll, you know, wherever you want to go, they will give you that money. I also know there's a whole lot of money sitting in that account. Advisors, the RSS advisors, make it our business to know these things and help students find funding for school, when otherwise looking for that could be very, very confusing. So we help with transitional challenges. navigating UAF, and we build community both through rural student services and through the Eileen Pennigy McLean House. And usually a lot of these students that feed in from the Rural Alaska Honors Institute are cohorted in and are familiar with each other. So we really build a strong foundation for our students. A lot of this is based on the cultural values that you see, the ubiquitous cultural values from every region in the state, and that's what a lot of these methods we use are based on. The positive self-concept, knowledge, understanding different knowledge systems, family relationships. We stand on those to be more understanding of what it means to be a rural student coming from a very strong cultural background. Other financial aid things we do, tribal enrollment, help with FAFSA. We help students with their UA scholars, APS. And the institutional benefit, of course, is then we have these students that we have a larger Alaska Native student retention rate. And we do have a lot of that data available through our department. And then we have student success. And we're looking for success stories. And I've had the pleasure of either teaching or working with all three of these wonderful young people. But that young man in the middle, he attended the Rural Alaska Honors Institute years ago. And I had the, I guess, displeasure of listening to another professor tell that young man that, you know, you're really just not cut out for college. You shouldn't even bother wasting someone's scholarship money. And he kind of went into a funk for a year or two, and I ran into him working at Fred Meyer's here in Fairbanks, pushing carts. And I said, Norman, why don't you come see us at Rural Student Services? You shouldn't listen to that fella. Why don't you come see us and do something? And he did, and he stuck with Rural Student Services. He was involved in Native, Alaska Native student clubs, several of them. Graduated top of his class. He was the poster child for the process tech degree program with CTC. Was so proud of himself, and you know, just it was great to see how he changed and became the man he was. And to this day, Norman and I are very good friends, and it's great to see him come do things with the university campus. So really good. We just have hundreds of those type of success stories around with our student bodies, and there's another one here. So that's our staff. At one point, we're always changing. That good-looking, long-haired dude right there is still there, and Carlton's here, and Minnie, Gabrielle Russell. But we've changed staff a little bit, but Gabby's been with our department for years and years and years, and just a wealth of knowledge. We have a really strong team able to help our incoming students and get them graduated, overcome some of these barriers and challenges. So that, and I almost, I think, hit the right time. That is our contact information. I would just check out our website. And we also have for the 50th anniversary, I think somewhere on our website is a link for the Rural Student Services 50th anniversary. There's a short 5-minute documentary. It's on YouTube. I think if you just type in Rural Student Services 50th anniversary, it'll probably pop up for you. And it's real interesting. And I've been told I'm in it. I missed that part when I watched it. So that's kind of our thing and how our programs work together at UAF to help students overcome some barriers. So I guess I will turn it back over.
Thanks, Timothy. So there's our first panelist. That's our first one that's gone through. We appreciate UAF and Rural Student Services, and we had put the link in the chat box for that. Felicia is going to add the link to the Jamboard back into the chat. Oh, she just did it. And so a hint, if you grab that link and you put it in Chrome, you'll be able to add in, but someone in your breakout room is going to be able to input when they get there. So when you do navigate over, notice in the corner there is, before we break everybody out, there is group 1, there's group 2, there's group 3. So you'll kind of see that it goes all the way to group number 10. So you have a group number up in the corner, and we would like you to start out with just answering 2 questions and put those questions in the chat so everybody takes them with them into the breakout rooms. What did you hear? And what do you want to explore more? So we're just going to start out with those first 2. What did you hear? And what do you want to explore more? So Felicia's going to go ahead and turn you out into the breakout rooms, and we will see you back here in a few minutes. So what we would like to know now is there somebody from any of the groups? We're not going to call every single group, but if there's a few people who want to kind of draw out, come off mute and draw out some of the things that they heard in their group, kind of what they heard and what their group would like to explore more. We'll take some volunteers. If you're unable to come off mute, kind of type that in the chat so we can fix that up for you. Keep in mind you have the Jamboard sticky notes as your backup, so you can kind of read them off if there's some that you like. Amy.
I can go.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm looking at our Jamboard, and what our group had a great conversation. Some of the things we heard are with students from high school, or pardon me, reach out to students who may be struggling. 2 main reasons for dropping out are financial aid and not feeling ready. How powerful having a like-minded and similar cultural group to support you can be in college. We commend the RSS on their great work. And student ability to know who the native funders are for scholarships in the state is key. And what we would like to explore more is, what is that feeling not ready? Just to dive in more on what that not ready means.
Could be a lot of things, right?
Yeah. And then what does their continual advising look like if they stay with one advising in RSS? What happens if a student changes major, or is their advising in addition done by faculty, or are they not in the picture and advising? So how is that advising journey in a little bit more detail? And then also there's a comment wanting to know more about the RSS team's experience in the districts from year to year. How do they maintain that continuity in the relationship when there's so much turnover in the schools for contacts? So how do they work within that?
Okay. I think I see Timothy writing down some notes there. Maybe he can put us a few things over in the chat box that we can kind of pick up as we go along. Thanks, Amy. And there was another group that wanted to kind of bring forth what they heard and what they'd like to know more about. They'd like to learn more about. I'm watching for hands. I'm trying to see if anybody's putting any up there. That was pretty encompassing. As I looked through the different Jamboard pages, that was much of what Amy said was kind of reiterated on each of the pages. And do watch the chat box. Timothy is putting some other pieces in there. We are going to go on to our next speaker, our second speaker. And our second panelist today is Marissa Sweet. She recently joined the Child Welfare Academy as the new Education and Training Voucher Coordinator, roles designed to help guide and support both former and current foster youth transition into higher education and living independently. So Marissa, if you'd like to share your screen, we are ready for your presentation.
Okay, first, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me all right.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Let me, oh, no, not share, present. Hi, so my name is Marissa, and I am with Child Welfare Academy. And I'm new to the Academy in terms of this position that I'm taking over, but I'm familiar with the Academy in terms of the fact that I was a student who this program supported me through my undergraduate education. And then I completed my master's here this spring, and the former coordinator who was in this role, as she moved ahead in her career, she had reached out and discussed that this position was available, and how having somebody with, you know, the lived experience that was familiar with the academy would be great as a mentor for students and the youth that are coming into higher education. And so with foster care, there's obviously a lot of barriers and disadvantages that come for youth that were in the system. And this is especially prevalent when youth are getting to higher or getting into adulthood and turning 18 and either transitioning out of care or transitioning into independence. And some of the barriers in life in general is homelessness, with an estimated 30% of youth coming out of care. They're going to be homeless in their first year out of foster care. And nearly 30% will also have contact with law enforcement and become incarcerated as adults. Nearly 80% of youth who were formerly in care, 80% report needing mental health services and accessing mental health resources throughout their adult life. 2.5 times more to become pregnant if you were in foster care than if you were not. And 50% of females before they turn 19 are going to become mothers, while 30% of males under 19 are likely to become fathers. And so looking at higher education, our program through Child Welfare Academy, there's kind of a sister branch, which is the ETV program. And then that stands for Education and Training Voucher. And so I'm the program coordinator. And what this is we're in affiliation with the Independent Living Program with OCS. And our program aims to outreach to youth who are 16, 17, and 18 in high school, and beginning to look at higher education and what that would mean for them. And by reaching out to high school aged youth, we begin to, kind of network and say, hey, this is what's available to you. Have you ever thought about going to college? And most of them say, well, I'm a foster kid, so no, I don't have the money. I'm barely trying to make it through high school with, unfortunately, a lot of them are still having court cases and different check-ins with caseworkers. There's also, mental health impairments that precede a lot of young adolescents that are in care. And so just kind of the whole idea that post-education is even an opportunity, and that going to college is something that would be open to them. It's a huge deal. And it also allows youth to start getting excited about, oh, wait, there is kind of this end, and it's not this end that they might have previously identified as kind of a dead end, as, I'm going to turn 18 and then be out on my own and kind of have no idea, what's next. The system's going to be done with me. And then suddenly I, go from having the courts and OCS making decisions for however long, I was in care, to now I'm on my own, and what kind of skills and different things do I need in order to, be successful as a young adult. And a lot of that sometimes comes down to higher education. And so through our program, we can offer, that financial aid, as well as kind of mentorship in case management, and then as well as helping these youth transition healthily into independent living, whether that's going to be an apartment or the dorms. It can, kind of range from a variety of different things. And so who's eligible? So youth that are currently or were in foster care on or before their 16th birthday, that's going to guarantee the criteria for access to our program. And under the age of 21 and having to have received your high school diploma or GED. And then, so once we begin I should say I, since I'm kind of the sole entity within the ETV program, at least, that works with youth. So going out and meeting with them, while they're still in high school, and begin talking to them about their interests, what they might want to do when they grow up, or grow up as in, in the next couple years, what they might be interested in exploring, or, maybe a trade. It doesn't just have to be, a university or college program. And then once they turn of age, where it's time to begin, the application process to schools, then we begin to meet more frequently and look at the different schools or programs that they want to pursue. And then all the way, to the registration process, picking out classes. I go with students and meet with, well, it's been virtual so far, but meeting with academic advisors and meeting with, financial aid on campus. And I can be as hands-on or, as kind of in the wings of things as the student wants. Some of them, they really want kind of that close kind of mentorship and peer support, to where I'm with them, kind of through really closely through the whole process. And some are already applying to colleges, and they have everything done, before I've even really explained, what all the ETV program is about in terms of how I can help with the financial aid aspect. And then, of course, with youth that were in care, there tends to be, even once they're out of care, some of these past traumas and things that might kind of creep up as they are in their older adolescence. So maybe like domestic relationships or romantic relationships, as college students begin to navigate, what that might look like. Sometimes there's unhealthy patterns that reestablish themselves in their now current relationships, and the youth will reach out and discuss maybe things that are unsafe or like ill-fitting in their home life, and just helping to be that kind of supportive engagement and discuss different healthy living skills, and how to manage kind of this holistic well-being of taking care of mental health, taking care of physical health, as well as, academics and whatnot. But it's not just school, it's kind of the overall well-being, because if you're not doing well, mentally or, physiologically, then your grades are going to suffer. You're not going to have, maybe the energy or the drive to, be doing well in your classes. And so it's just making sure kind of that holistic approach is pursued when helping youth. And so, as in terms of the financial aid part, so the ETV program, the education and training voucher, it's federally funded, and it's going to offer assistance for an accredited college, university, vocational, or technical school. So we have students that just because you were in foster care and resources and opportunities may have been limited to you, that doesn't mean you have to only go to UAA. We have students, probably 6 or 7, that are out of state right now for college, and doing very well. Some students just have that drive that they want, out of Alaska, they want a new start, and they, just like any other student who's in high school, go through the process of applying and getting admitted to these universities in the States. And we're here to help with that. Most of it has to be virtual and remote, so that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're doing already, since even students who are in local schools here, everything's remote, so it works out with our students who are down in the States. And then the voucher, it provides $2,500 per semester, $5,000 per academic year. Kind of the fun thing right now, though, is, and I say fun because it's been a great opportunity that was granted to our program with some of the COVID relief efforts and emergency aid, they thought, okay, well, who's going to be, really suffering the brunt of the COVID pandemic? And, besides people with compromised immune systems or, those who are already in a vulnerable population, there's those who, kind of have different social or like environmental things that are kind of negating their ability for full functioning. And knowing that they increased the ETV for $6,000 per semester, so that's $12,000 per academic year. And that increase is in effect until September 30th, 2022. So we still have this semester, spring, and the next fall that the increase of $6,000 per semester is in place. And ETV is available for up to 144 credits within 10 semesters at the accredited college or technical school. And then up to 10 semesters, it has to be completed within 6 years. And then at age 23, eligibility is, it comes to an end. And so with the expense coverage, it covers tuition, student fees, books and supplies, room and board, transportation, personal or miscellaneous expenses, and even childcare. And so room and board, that doesn't just necessarily mean, being on campus. We have, students that are transitioning into their first apartment, or maybe, cohabitating with a significant other or a roommate. And that money can then be allocated towards rent and groceries, stuff like that, up to the 2,500, or in this case, the 6,000. And then for students right now that we have enrolled within UAA, there's about, I want to say, around 30, but if I had to be specific, I think my roster is 32 or 33. And then we have 5 students at UAF and 3 at University of Southeast. And then probably about 8 or 9 that are within, kind of technical or vocational schools. We have students at Trendsetters. We have students doing culinary art programs. Down in, I think it's Seward is where the culinary arts program is really popular. And then besides ETV, we also offer a tuition waiver, and this is granted by the university. The same eligibility requirements are prevalent. So you have to have been in foster care on or before your 16th birthday up until age 23. And then this is going to attribute to the costs of up to 144 undergraduate credits within 6 years and not to exceed 10 semesters. And so the nice thing is with the tuition waiver, once you have been awarded it, it covers that tuition throughout your undergraduate degree. And when it covers the cost of tuition, then you have ETV available for those remaining costs. So books, supplies, and then, hopefully the rest of it will be going towards housing and different personal needs in order to be healthy and successful in college. And right now with the $6,000 increase, that allows a lot of extra money available for students to be able to take care of their personal needs and matters as well. And then I know our last presenter really talked about or touched on kind of this collaboration of students who are, coming from the same situation or are involved in the same program, and what that support is, through this kind of small cohort. And that's kind of where our partnership comes in with FFCA, and it's in close affiliation with ETV, and it is helping provide foster youth and alumni, which are our students who you don't have to be in school, but a lot of the students are in affiliation and a part of FFCA. And so it's providing opportunities to share lived expertise about life in foster care and to raise community awareness, educate child welfare staff and government officials, and educate foster youth throughout Alaska about the rights, resources, and opportunities to share their voice and promote change. And so with our students, we, apart from FFCA, the students who are involved in the ETV program. We do have different encounters throughout the semester. Well, it's a little bit suspended right now because everything's remote, but we host a summer conference where students who are going to be entering higher education, we bring them together for a 3-day event at UAA campus. They stay overnight in the dorms, and they kind of learn what that's like. And we go over all of the different financial aid that's available to them. We discuss different opportunities for like independent living classes where different skills are taught, everything from cooking to budgeting, to opening up a bank account, how to write checks, everything like that. We have a winter party every year where we have this, it's called the Giving Tree, and students in our program, they create wish lists and we hang them on a tree outside of our office, and generous folk from the community come and they take the lists off of the tree and they donate gifts that the students have asked for, which a lot of times it's stuff like pots, pans, different household needs and items, because students are, you know, getting into their own for the first time. And then just different check-ins throughout the semester too, where, you know, students come together and there's, you know, kind of these academic involvements, or not tutoring sessions or anything, but where students can come and, you know, discuss different projects they're working on, or you know, homework and stuff, and they can all kind of relate to you know, the challenges of what college is in general, but also college while having, you know, been in care, or you know, there's students that are still in care, as you can be in care up to 21 in the state of Alaska, and that allows for kind of this nice cohort of support and you know, shared living experience that students can feel not alone, and that they, you know, kind of have this togetherness of you know, those who are in the same boat as them. And that kind of leads back to me, I think at the beginning, you know, mentioning where this program is new to me only because I'm now in charge of you know, kind of coordinating it, but my undergraduate education was afforded by this program. And so being able to have had the previous person in this position, you know, to be there as a mentor and just a supportive, you know, hand was something that was really integral, and you know, allowed for some of just the hardships that came out through you know, just life and transitioning from high school into college, when those were apparent, being able to reach out to her and knowing that there was somebody to confide in that wasn't OCS or wasn't the state, and somebody who had lived experience as well. It just provided this kind of this secured comfort of, okay, somebody is there and they have my back and they know what it's like as well. And then thankfully, you know, with being able to go to school and have this, you know, afforded for my bachelor's, I was able to pay my way through my master's and, you know, pursue my graduate degree as well. And so it's kind of this idea of coming full circle and being able to share that as well for youth that, you know, think, oh man, like, I don't think that, you know, this isn't for me, or is it for me? You know, everyone's told me that, you know, what are you going to be? What are you going to amount to? And just showing that just because you were in foster care, that doesn't mean anything, and you can still amount to just as much as the other peers and friends that you meet in college that haven't had you know, suffered the same past trials or tribulations as you have. So, and then that's my information. And yeah, I appreciate being able to kind of introduce myself and begin to, you know, network with the other organizations and programs out there that you might see a student of mine or might see one of yours in the future. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Marissa, there were two questions, just real quick. I think they're short answer questions. One of them, if the student qualifies for the presidential scholarship, is that for the 4 years?
Yes. So the let's see here. So it's within. I mean, it doesn't have to be 4 years. It's up to 144 credits. So usually most degree programs, they're around 130 or so. So it allows for some leeway, as well as, you know, there's some prerequisite classes like math sometimes doesn't always count for those graduate level like classes, like the 054 and 055 math. You're not going to be getting the hour credits for those. So it allows to still pay for it, but not count towards those 144.
And the second question, if they do get the ETV, do they also qualify for the Pell?
Yes. So didn't really go into too much of that just to save time, but you're still able to. So with Pell, it's kind of nice. You don't have to enter any of your parents or family financial information. There's a little check mark box that says basically I was in foster care on or before this age, and then that allows everything with FAFSA to just kind of cancel out. You're deemed an independent student, and so the Pell Grants are then offered to you, as well as loans.
All right, thank you so much, Marissa. And there is one other question. It was about taxes, I believe. Let's see, what was it? Are the funds used for educational expenses direct educational expenses taxed?
No, they are not.
All right.
It was for those not
direct. I'm sorry.
not direct. I know that, yeah.
So for not direct educational expenses, would those be taxed?
Oh, gotcha. It depends. It's kind of funny. It's kind of weird when you're given like your estimated cost of attendance, and so what's claimed as a direct educational expense can vary for if it meets the estimated cost of attendance or not. And so they will be taxed unless you're able to confirm that those expenses are identified within the cost of attendance, estimated cost of attendance. If that makes sense, it becomes kind of confusing for depending on what the student can identify or not as their own costs, like their own expenses.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing this information. I didn't know anything about the education and training vouchers, so it's really interesting to learn about. I think we are going to be going into our groups next. It'll be the same questions, and we're trying to get everybody into the same groups, I believe, right, Julia? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. You can't hear my head rattling, but yes, ma'am.
That's okay. And so the questions would be, what did you hear and what would you like to explore more? And then we will come out and have a little discussion before our next presenter. Thank you.
So a couple of things that I see looking at the Jamboard that you guys have heard. You were really glad to hear about the ETV, the Educational Training Voucher. That's really good information to know, and know that some of the COVID funds have been added to that to increase that, because it does make things a little bit more expensive for the students going forward this last couple of years and going into the next couple. Learning about some of the resources for foster care, but also remembering that that data is important when we're looking at these barriers, historical, and then what we are seeing going forward, and even what some of the bigger barriers that go along with that. If they've got a baby with them, they're trying to figure out daycare. I've had daycare go kaplooey on me before. Some of you might have had that happen. Some things you want to explore some more is making meaningful connections with the students, and just being there, making sure they understand that these pieces and parts are out there, making sure counselors, educators understand that when they find out about a student who may have been in foster care, that they have this information to share forward. So we are going to move on to our next panelist. And so, Barbara, did you want to go ahead and introduce our next panelists?
I would love to. Thank you so much. So we have two speakers. Our next panelist is a Crystal I'm probably messing up your last name. I'm sorry. Komkoff is the 477th Youth Manager for CITC ETSD and has been involved in youth services for more than 20 years. Originally, Crystal comes from Cordova, Alaska. And then Renee Fredericks is the Senior Director of the Youth Empowerment Services Department of CITC. Originally, Renee's family came from the village of Sleepmut, or is that Sleepmute, on the Cossaquin River in Pennsylvania. So Crystal and Renee.
Thank you. Crystal and I did not even coordinate our tops today, but we do happen to have the same one. That's how good we are. I think Crystal is going to run the slideshow for us. All right. So my name is Renee Fredericks, and as the quick bio stated, that I have worked for Cook Inlet Council, Tribal Council for about 8 years. My father was from the Kuskokwim River. My mother is a good German, Scotch, English person from Pennsylvania. And currently I work with Cook Inlet Tribal Council with our youth, and we have a youth empowerment services, the YES department over at Cook Inlet, and we focus on K-12, serving kids K-12 and getting them ready to be able to move on to their next educational goal, whether it's officially a college or a 2-year degree, or maybe a technical program, or moving right into the workforce. So these are all the options that we work with our kids on, and we serve kids mainly in the ASD school district. And I just got in, I'm terrible at these because I just go right into it. I get very excited and I want to tell you about all of our programs. But just a moment, Crystal, I will do my job and tell you a little bit about Cook Inlet Tribal Council. So we are a nonprofit Alaska Native social services organization located within Anchorage, and we serve all Alaska Natives because many, as everyone's aware, all Alaska Native groups tend to come into Anchorage, and so there's not just one particular grouping. So we serve everyone that is in Anchorage. This year alone, just for a YES department, we've served over 1,600 kids in the school day with our school programs, and over 1,000 kids in our camps and other different activities that I'll talk about going forward. There are, I don't know, I think there's 6 different departments now at Cook Inlet Tribal Council. We're sort of a wraparound services organization. Crystal works in employment and training, which focuses on more of the adult side of it, but Crystal gets to work with kids too. And so getting people ready to get the skills that they need to continue doing self-improvement through their lives and making themselves self-sufficient. We have recovery services, and all of these departments now work with kids because we see the need through all the levels. So we have a recovery services department. They do have some youth programs focused on helping kids if they have drug or alcohol problems, or if their parents do or family members do, which is a huge barrier for our kids to continuing school and education, even in regular K-12, let alone college. We have child and family services for people who are needing support in parenting and co-parenting. We have Alaska Native Justice Center, and I've taken a little bit of a note on that last ETV and tribal adoptions. I don't know if there's something that we could help with in that area, but I'm going to bring it up. And then we have our education department, and we have Claire Swan Early Head Start for little tiny babies, getting them started off on the right foot. So that's a little bit about CITC. Crystal, since I talked for you, is there anything else you'd like to say about yourself?
Nope, I'm good.
Sorry. So we have a few slides just to show you how we are supporting our kids particularly in my department, like I said, K-12, we're trying to get them ready for college. We're meeting them where they're at, looking at where they are, reviewing. We have teachers in the school day. We have youth advocates, which are people who are sort of like a counselor, but really a wraparound full family kind of advocate for our kids. So we have all these things that we place around town and then within our own building so kids can come to us too. Here are some of our goals on the first slide. And really our mission statement for the youth department is to support our kids to reach their endless potential, because we believe that education is a great equalizer, and that is one way that we can help our kids succeed. All right. And so we do that through a number of ways. When we first started with the education department, we really focused on teachers in the school day. And what we found was that there were other ways that we could help kids succeed. And so we started looking at after school programs, camps in the summer to address learning loss, as well as we have what is called tribal prep. And that is one that I think is really helpful for kids, especially as we look at them becoming an adult and going into college and beyond the family home, which is really about adulting 101 kind of. We talk about finances, we talk about good, healthy choices in relationships, healthy choices in your sexual activity to determine if you want to have children now or if you want to wait. There are ways to do that. So we do all of these things, and all of those also include help with Fafsa, as was mentioned before. We help kids research different college options. We help them review what's needed for their college application. We help them get all those things ready and do a portfolio before their junior and senior year. We know that some of our families, the parents have never attended college. They didn't have to do a FAFSA. These are not easy documents for people to fill out. And so we're here to help our kids do all those things. Next one, Crystal.
All right. So the mission of my department is to end generational poverty through programs that encourage school completion, post-secondary education, employability skills, and employment. So we offer several different programs. A few of them are only related to TANF families, but many of them are open to any Alaska Native or Native American living here in the Anchorage area. Oops, hit the back button. I forgot that this is a shorter slideshow. So we offer for low income Alaska Native or Native American youth, we offer youth case management, and that's extra support for youth that might be just needing it. Oftentimes they have had OCS involvement. Maybe they are falling behind in school. Maybe they've just recently moved from a village to Anchorage and they're struggling to fit in. So we can provide that extra support and life skills classes and other cultural activities, just kind of help them fit in a little bit better. And then we have the program that we're most well known for is our youth employment program. We loosely refer to it as our internship program. It is for 14 to 24-year-old Alaska Natives. We do give preference to youth that are low income, but we typically have slots available each session for folks that don't meet those low income requirements. And we do 3 sessions a year. There's summer, fall, and spring. We partner with a variety of employers all throughout the city to try to provide a wide variety of experiences for youth to learn how to get some of those good work ethics. And then we have Youth Career Connections. It's just job searching assistance. So we'll do practice interviews, help them write resumes, help them, if they are low income, help them get an interview outfit. If they do get a job and they need tools, figuring out, either finding other funding to help them with those tools or giving them funding for those tools that they need, or clothes. If they need bus passes and they have a job, then we can help them with that as well. And then for our youth camp financial assistance and Rising Star for good grades, that's for folks that are on TANF but will give good money for good grades and good attendance. We'll also help folks that either want to attend a summer camp or they want to pay for, Pop Warner football. We can pay up to $500 per child that's on TANF per year. And then we do a week-long camp for 8 to 11-year-olds, and we'll do a variety of field trips and other cultural and just fun activities with Alaska Native youth. The other part of ETSD that you might be interested in learning about is our Tribal Vocational Rehabilitation Program. So anybody who has a disability that's age 16 can start engaging with TVR for individualized plan. They'll help them figure out what it is that they want to do after high school and provide those extra supports that they might need, as well as potentially providing them technology that might be able to help them be successful in school or on the job. And again, for Alaska Natives,
she's leaving. And he goes, well, I guess we should do dinner then, huh? Which is like tomorrow, because they leave at 11 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. I said, oh, thank you for that advance notice.
There we go. Thank you. Do you want to talk about recovery services, Renee?
I sure can try.
All right.
So Crystal and I are covering for some other departments, so I have less information. Although I also was laughing at myself because I forgot how much we shortened this as well, Crystal. I was like, oh, forgot a few things. So as I mentioned, recovery services has been focusing on increasing their youth serving services. So they have a group that has group and individual sessions. They can, like, I don't know much about this, Crystal, sorry. They provide case management, and they're just there, and they've been working with the school, different schools in the school district, to provide more of the in-depth counseling that might be needed, trying to find those kids that need that counseling so that they can get the services that they need, so they can continue to grow and prosper throughout their time in school, so that they don't have to worry about those other things that weigh on them, such as recovery, or if their parents or family is in recovery, that they may need extra services and support to make it through some of those rough times. ANJC, our Alaska Native Justice Center, is one of the subsidiaries at Cook Inlet Tribal Council. They have a few programs that are specifically focusing on youth. They have restorative justice as one of their tenants, and so they have Color of Justice, one of their programs to interest kids in the legal profession. They work with kids in that program, as well as the other ones listed on the slide.
They've been partnering with Big Brothers Big Sisters to do the youth development program. So they'll help provide case management for Alaska Native youth that are enrolled in Big Brothers Big Sisters if their families would like that additional support.
And then, just because I forgot how much we shortened this, just to pick out a few extra pieces from the Youth Empowerment Services Department, we help kids with APEX classes. So those are the online classes, and they can either come into our department and do it with help from our staff on site, or they can do it from home, and they can call in and get any help that they need. And with that, there's been a huge uptick in a lot of our kids being able to finish their classes. And so just to be aware, the APEX classes are exactly the same classes that ASD uses through APEX. We're just able to have smaller classrooms and provide more of one-on-one help that may be needed. And that's sort of one of our tenets, is we always try to do classes with less kids, so you can do more one-on-one attention, kind of catch the kids where they might be falling behind, and supplementing their learning on those specific pieces. This year, I think we've had almost 10,000 hours of tutoring time with our kids, even through COVID. And so this is a really high need. We know our kids need this help. We know that the stats are saying that there's high rates of kids dropping out of school and not getting proficient ratings on their tests. So that's what we're here to do, is help our kids beat all those odds and focus on their goals for the future. And so with the Yes department, we can only help kids up through 12th grade, they're seniors. And then we always look to Crystal and some of her crew to help the kids beyond that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Renee and Crystal. We are going to go back to the Jamboard. And so that link is going to be coming in. We've got the 2 questions again. What did you hear and what would you like to explore some more? But this time, especially if you start having some extra time in your breakout room, we want you to start thinking about those bottom 2 questions about next steps and 3 important steps for the Alaska CAN network. We are going to have one more speaker here in just a few minutes. And so when you're in your breakout room, think about, we're kind of looking at all those questions on your group's page. So we'll see you back in just a few minutes. Welcome back again. So we do thank CITC and their YES programs and their 477. Lots and lots of resources. It's kind of like a situation where they're trying to find the door to let people in. There's like no wrong door. Come in and we'll figure out how we're going to help you out. And so we did put the link to their main site. We did put that in the chat. Susan added us a couple of links about financial aid as well. So thank you, Susan. Lots of programs. One of the things that stuck out is we are talking about students who are in the, and youth who are in the Anchorage area, or some of the other programs we were looking at across Alaska. So, you know, it might be something to emulate in another area, another part of Alaska. I don't know what that would look like to emulate those programs statewide. It would probably take quite a bit of work, but definitely in our different ardors and things like that around the state, we could maybe implement something like this, advocate for it as well. Starting to see some things get into the next steps and the 3 most important steps. And so when we finish our next speaker, we'll have a real short breakout, and we want to for sure make sure that we're putting something in there so that the network board, the network and the board have some information to work forward on. Yeah, still more great stuff coming into the chat. So keep going on that. Me reading at the same time and talking, that doesn't work good for me. So, but there's things, nice information coming into the chat. So we want to continue to see that. One of the things that they did put in here, they want to hear like what kind of results are they seeing. Maybe not just the anecdotal kind of results, but are there some numbers, some figures, data that come along with it as well? And, you know, just getting into the data. That's something people are really looking at quite a bit, is data. So our last speaker today, and unfortunately, I think we might get really close to time. We might start to bump over time. We appreciate your time. We hope you can stay with us because this is going to be a very important perspective we're about to listen to, and we will end our session today with some wrap up and some next steps, what the network can be doing. If you do have to leave us, do watch for an email that's going to come out asking you to fill out the evaluation, and we do have a couple of Amazon gift cards available for drawing if you do get your evaluation back within the 24 hours of it being sent out. But our 4th presenter this afternoon, our 4th panelist, is Tiffany Jackson, and she's with the Association of Alaska School Boards. She is the Director of Member Services. She served on the Aleutians East School Board. She served on the board for the Alaska Association of School Boards and the National Association of School Boards. She's a mom of 3 kids and a mentor to many more, and we'll be sharing her perspective as a parent. And so, Emily, we'll let you come off mute and take it away.
You said Emily, but I think you meant Tiffany.
I meant Tiffany. Emily was our contact to you. Tiffany, yes. Tiffany. So sorry. Thank you, Tiffany Jackson.
No problem. So thank you for having me here today. And thank you to Emily to extend the invitation for me to be here today. I am coming after all these great programs and speakers talking about some really great services for our students out there. And I felt like, wow, I'm really talking to you about my perspective as a parent and as a mentor. And it's really, I think when I first came on talking about the hurdles, it's really easy to identify those hurdles. So I don't want to leave us on a down note, but just realize that's kind of where I'm coming from right now. And when the first sheet came up and you were talking about the last work that was done on the Jamboard and the different areas that were identified, the cost, the support, the exposure and preparation, access, navigation, and representation, I went, wow, these are all things that I had already planned on talking about when we talk about cost and access. We've already heard that a lot of students haven't had to fill out the FAFSA before, but the problem that I've noticed from being from a rural community, one with really limited bandwidth, is that with the FAFSA being solely, you have to complete it online. We've had a lot of problems with students being able to complete it online. We don't have the bandwidth that's necessary to do it in our homes. And sometimes at our schools, we've had schools that implement, oh my gosh, I forgot the technical term, the wall thing. So they don't have the permission to access that FAFSA form from the school network, getting technical assistance to firewall, thank you. Getting the technical support to complete those FAFSA. Sometimes we've had people come in from the university into our communities to, okay, we're going to come in, we're going to work with all of our seniors to complete the FAFSA so that they're ready to move forward with college next year, and running into the firewall issue or just bandwidth issues, weather issues. Something that in my previous job with the tribe, we had similar services as you heard of with CITC, with case management, but we still had a lot of those barriers, the technical assistance barriers. We don't necessarily teach our students how to ask questions. I think sometimes when we're in rural communities, it's really great to have a small school with a really tight-knit school community. But I think often you'll see our teachers that know our students so well that they'll be teaching and walking through the classroom and they may see, hey, Tiffany, it looks like you're struggling with this a little bit. Do you want me to help you? And so we have our teachers that are sometimes really proactive in working with our students. But what in my observation is that in turn means that our students aren't necessarily building those skills to know that they need to be approaching their professors, that they need to be asking questions. How do they ask questions? What are those pathways? Who do they talk to? Knowing the ins and outs. So talking about navigation and representation. My son is 21 years old. So I've gone through this process with him. And I remember as a senior, I have gone through this. When I was in high school, I applied for scholarships. I fought my way through the university system and it was a struggle. So having been in education for a while, having been on the school board, having contacts, I was able to help him navigate. And I also mentor other students when I was in Sandpoint working at the tribe, bringing high school students in to work with us and kind of helping them navigate through the process. But do you know how to register for classes? Okay, you've been accepted. How do you apply? You've been accepted. Have you registered? Have you requested housing? Do you know how to request housing? Do you know how to, if this class isn't going to work for you, do you know how to talk to your advisor about that? But also the expectation. I think every single student that I've ever worked with went, hey, I only have this many hour of classes in a week. Woohoo, I'm going to have so much time. And I'm like, okay, yes, you're only in the classroom for that amount of time, but you need to read your syllabus and you need to realize that there is a substantial amount of homework that's associated with every single class. They're expecting you to be doing the reading, to be reading the syllabus, to be doing the assignments, and you're not going to be having a teacher that's up in front of you every day writing the assignment on the board and making sure you have that information every day, reminding you that you're really going to take some personal ownership in that. And I still haven't figured out a great way to communicate that to students, that there's such a requirement for homework. Another hurdle that I've seen a lot is students not seeing the value in seeking a higher education. I'm just going to come home. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that. And I think part of the problem is us as communities have not done a really great job at communicating the value to them. We all say, yeah, you got to go to college, you got to get an education. But what are we doing to say, and we are going to value your education. We are going to welcome you back to our communities. We are going to make space for you in our community to come back and use your skills and help us grow. I think too often we see students that get an education, we're like, great, you got a degree. Now you got to go somewhere else to figure out how to use that. What are we doing to make sure that there are space for our students that want to come back home to use their education back home? So I know we're pressed on time, but I just really wanted to touch on some of those things. We've heard a lot about financial support for our students. I touched on that with the Fafsa scholarships. Our students don't necessarily know how to apply for scholarships. They don't understand. I'm saying they, but I know in the students that I've worked with, I'm like, a deadline is a deadline. You have to get your stuff in by the deadline, and you're not going to necessarily have your mom or your boss that's mentoring you. They're going, you need to fill this out. Have you gotten your letters of recommendation? You have to request your letters of recommendation before the due date, because you have to give the people you're requesting a letter of recommendation for time to write that letter. You should have a resume of the things that you've accomplished, so that when you request that letter of recommendation, you can say, here's a resume of things that I've done, of awards I've received, so that you can assist that person in writing a great letter of recommendation for you. Yeah, I really want our kids to be successful. I know all the groups that we have here have done some great programs. I know I've started working with the Association of Alaska School Boards, and I have a couple coworkers here, Emily and Tyler, and they work in communities and help support communities to really engage them in the conversations around our students and our education and bridging the high school secondary education trail. So I really applaud all the work that's being done here, and I hope that something of what I've said has resonated at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. When we were setting this up, we thought we need to have a student perspective and the parent perspective. And so we kind of rolled that all up together for Tiffany. And you put it very eloquently. Thank you so much. So now we are going to go back to our Jamboard again. This is our last time kind of going back to our Jamboard, and then we'll kind of finish out from there. And so this time, yes, we want to know what you heard, and we want to know what you want to explore more, but we also want to look at those questions about what are your next steps going forward, and what do you think 3 important next steps are for the Alaska CAN network. So Felicia is going to put you back out into your breakout groups. And so we will see you back in just a couple minutes, and then we can kind of share out and wrap up for our session. All right. So as we are finishing up, is there any particular group who'd kind of like to share their thoughts? And it could be about any of the last couple of speakers, or just of your day, something that kind of stood out to you today. Don't everybody raise your hand at the same time. It might break the internet.
Julia, did you want to pull up the Jamboard?
I am.
Share that.
Something that was pretty present in a lot of the presentations today was like a focus on holistic learning and holistic skills, and really like teaching students more than just like education and that kind of support, which I appreciated. And I was really into having conversations like that.
Thank you. Anybody else like to share? So some of the next steps that we see down here at the bottom, and Barbara, by all means, you can join in here too. Working out, this is one of the ones that we work at in our entity at the commission, is about making sure that FAFSA completion is it's a big deal, right? It's like step number one to getting financial aid, which financial aid is going to start opening some doors, getting into post-secondary education, all kinds of levels of post-secondary education. So if we make sure that we can get the FAFSA in front of the students, that we have assistance, and at ACPE, I don't think Kate would mind if I said this. We want to partner with you. If you've got some idea of something that you're trying to do to get the FAFSA out there and help your community, help your group of students and youth, and those seeking education and credentials, let us know. We're always looking to see how we can partner. I saw some of the comments said things like next steps were continuing the conversations, continuing to talk to people in the community. How can we prepare our students, especially with COVID as another layer, when they don't necessarily get to have their campus visits, maybe when they don't feel comfortable leaving home, or they don't feel comfortable being at a particular campus or site. There were a couple of comments that I saw that mentioned having a list of resources. I'm guessing we're talking maybe like a book. If anybody had one of those comments, I saw it on a couple pages and wants to kind of come off mute and kind of explain what kind of list of resources or how that might look. Maybe you're thinking even on the brand new Alaska Can page, a list of resources maybe.
Yeah, that's what they're referring to. I know we had that discussion too, putting a list and a description, kind of like what we were working with Alaska Can. Yeah.
The other thing we discussed was that those steps that I'm forgetting her name, Tiffany was talking about, some of those things that, like, there's all these resources out there, but is there a handbook of advice for somebody to be successful in their post-secondary education, that something along those lines, other than not just getting into the post-secondary programs, but what to do to be successful after.
Yeah, you got there, now do well.
Mm-hmm.
Be successful. And that's, we're looking at those kinds of things in what we do, at ACPE, but definitely Alaska Can wants to do that too. We want everybody to be successful. That's how we get to 65 by 2025 and beyond. And it's how we build self-advocates. That kind of talked into what Tiffany was talking about, students advocating for themselves, asking for what they need and what they want, but also, finding out where that's going to be in our community, how we can put that in, where are those resources, talking to others. And that's something, there's going to be lots of studies created due to all of this COVID for the last couple of years, and they're probably going to run for years and years and decades. And so, what kind of information can we find out instead of waiting till the end of all of those studies to find out what's happening? We need to start looking for what are ways to cope with that here, and maybe change things, turn things around right here in Alaska. Barbara, did you have some comments?
One of the things that Group 2 discussed was like the ETV program. A lot of people hadn't heard of that. So how do they get that information out to everybody, and how can we help them get that, other than just putting it as a resource, but actually get the information to the people that need it in the schools? And even in the tribes. And then another question about that program was, do they have something that like that for people in tribal that go through the tribal courts that aren't through the state foster care, that are in tribal foster care situations? If that works for them or if that is separate.
So do we have time for me to answer these, Julia?
Sure, just a couple minutes.
Yeah. So for the first question, there's a lot of doing on not as much just only my end, but the state as well. So students, while we start the networking around age 16, at age 17, they're going to be in close relations with the independent living program through OCS. So anyone that has a caseworker is going to be setting them up with an IL specialist who this is, reiterated as an opportunity and as an option. The ETV program, as well as anybody from like attorneys and stuff of different youth, they're aware of the program. So it's a lot of people that are on the side of kind of the state and the Office of Children's Services. And then I was speaking with somebody in my group earlier, and we also like network out to schools when we're given aware of students. So coming to the schools and meeting with them, and then different classes and stuff through OCS where like I go and present and discuss with students. So a lot of the times they're going to be getting this information again and again and again through kind of their last few years that until they're transitioning into early adulthood. And then for so the ETV program, yeah, there is eligibility for students who are going to be in care for like within different organizations than OCS. Just some of the other financial aid might not be available, like the tuition waivers, and OCS has some private funding that goes to students as well if they don't qualify for the tuition waiver. But ETV in general is going to be available depending on what entity they're in care under.
Go ahead, Julia. Thank you.
Thanks, Marissa, for that clarification. I do, as you know, because of what I do want to make sure to remind everyone that AKCIS, the Alaska Career Information System, is available to everyone in the state of Alaska, grades 3 through retirement. And there is a financial aid sort inside of AKCIS. There's about 3,000 scholarships and grants. 800, about 800 of them are Alaska-based scholarships and grants. And so that's a nice, easier way for students to funnel things down under parameters that mean something to them, to find some financial aid that helps them. But we do have 4,000 schools and training programs in AKCIS. We do go below the bachelor's level. So we do have apprenticeship certificates, licenses, endorsements, on-the-job training. We have got bachelor's, master's, professional endorsements, doctoral degrees, all kinds of things in there. So, and the step-by-step setting the goals, making things happen. I know that I have partnered with some of our presenters today that use AKCIS in their groups when they're working with their youth. And so you can always reach out if you're wanting a little bit more information for your particular group that you're joining us representing today. We want to thank you for joining us for this event, for this convening, and we appreciate you. You know, it's a Monday, and you didn't take that many reminders to get here, so that's awesome. And the Alaska Can Network appreciates your attendance and your input. And thank you. If you do think of something that you want to add to the Jamboard, because, you know, we kind of think of things as we're moving around doing other things, please come back to the Jamboard and add that in. This is a resource that is available to the network as they're doing planning and it's working on other areas as well. And your input is what's going to help shape what's going on. You guys are part of the network, so do watch for other messages about ways to continue to join in. And Shelley just put a reminder, there are different kinds of committees moving around inside the network. And so lots of opportunities to get involved, to find your niche to get in there. And do watch for the email with the evaluation. And if you are able to answer that evaluation within the 24 hours of it being put out, then you will be put in the drawing for, there's two $25 Amazon gift cards. And so we will take a drawing out of there. Any final words, Barbara?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know we're going to take the information off of this Jamboard, put it into a Google document of some sort, and then we're going to try to send that out to everybody that participated so that we can get your input and make it like a living document that we can have. And then we'll also try to find the resources and stuff. Maybe we can add those in there too. But thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it. And hopefully you'll be coming to our next Alaska Can conference, which will be in, where is it? What time is that? When is that, Julia?
March 1st through the 3rd.
All right, March 1st to the 3rd. Thank you, Shelley. I forgot. But anyways, thank everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks to all of our presenters too.
And organizers.
Yes, thank you for everybody on the Professional Development Committee and Julia and Shelley and everybody else, Angela, Felicia, everybody that I'm not remembering right this second. Thanks.